Okay, so on the Python section of coding that, I'd like to do the string one problems next and allow you to finish up the warm-up problems. And so there's a little cheat sheet with some string functions on here, and I've copied the code over into a program, and I'm going to run it and just give you a walkthrough just so you can see what's happening in case this doesn't actually make sense. All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way, move it over here, and we're going to run it. Actually, I'm going to do this and have some blank lines between sections so that you can tell what block of code does each thing. So let's run it. Okay. So got an error right now, but that's on purpose. I'll comment that out for a second. So at the top, I made this string that just says hello. And one of the things that we can do with strings is just print the length of it. So there's a built-in function called len, L-E-N, which is length, and you put the string in there and it tells you how many characters are in it. So there are 5 characters in this. One thing we should wonder, it's like, well, gosh, what if there's a space in there? Does that count? And you can see that, yes, in fact, it does. Okay, but I'm going to take that out. And then we'll look at the next. So spaces, punctuation, any characters, every single character counts, not just like alphabetic characters and numbers and stuff like that, right? Anything, if you can see it, it counts. All right, so let's go back, and here's the output again with the error message. Actually, let me rerun this. So, all right, so here we can see that the length of the word hello is 5, and then we can grab individual characters out of a string. So this first line, I take the string and I say print the character at index 0, and you can see I got the capital H. Index is just the word for the position of a character in a string. And the character at index 1 is the E, and index 4 is the O. And so there's something that we should observe here, and that is when we number characters in a string, we always their positions start with 0, 1, instead of 1. So that's a little bit unusual when you first start programming to deal with what we call zero indexing. So even though there are 5 characters in the string, the indexes, the locations, are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we always have that relationship where the final character is 1 less than the length of the string. Okay? So that part might seem a little bit weird, but actually when you start programming, you find out zero indexing makes a lot of problems mathematically just kind of work out real neatly. So this line right here, where I tried to print the character at position 5, which doesn't exist because the last character is at index 4. I got an error message. And so the error message says string index out of range. And so when you see this, all that means is you tried to access a character that doesn't exist. And it almost always means, well, you tried to look past the end of something. So I am going to comment out that line of code so that the rest of this will run. All right. Right. So another thing that we can do is use negative indexes to access characters in a string. And so if I pass in -1, right, that means we're counting from the back, and that's the O, and then this L would be at -2, and that's -3, -4, and -5, and so on. So if you use a negative index, it's just going to start counting from the back end of the string. And I think this is a really nice feature. Now, what's really happening here, right, is, they help us. And in some other programming languages, if you've coded before, you would, when you want to access the last character, you do the length of the string -1, right? Because the length is 5, so 5 minus 1 is 4, which would be the last character. So this is really what we're doing, but Python allows us to have a nice little shorthand notation to use negative indexes. All right. Another thing we can do is what's called slicing. And so this is how you can grab a section of a character. So you can see now I have the string, and then I have 2 numbers with the colon in between. And so when I did 1:4, I got ELL. And so what it does is it goes from character 1, 2, 3. And you notice character 4 is not included. And that's because the way slicing works, it's a start here and it's an up to but not including, right, this last character. If you go, so if I go 0 and 2, this actually means I'm going to 0:2. That means I'm going to get characters 0 through 0 and 1 of the string, right? Because that's up to but not including. That's another little just detail to pay attention to if your solutions aren't working out. Sometimes it's easy to forget that this character is not actually included. One more thing with slices that's a little bit different than indexing up here, and that is if you make a slice that goes out of bounds, so I'll go from characters 2 through 8, and obviously there aren't that many characters in there. This actually still runs just fine. And what you end up getting, if you go out of bounds with a slice, it'll just give you the part of the string that exists in that range, but it won't, and it doesn't throw an error. So we just, even though there's not characters 2 through 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, it just gave us characters 2, 3, and 4 because that's what exists. Okay, so you in slicing, it's impossible, right? You're not going to go out of bounds, and so sometimes taking advantage of that makes some problems a little bit simpler to solve. All right, slicing has a shorthand notation. And so you can see here, rather than put a number on either side of the colon, I omitted the first number. And so I just started with a colon. And so what that means is that, if you omit the first number, it just means start at the beginning and go all the way up to, but not including the second number. So that's where I got my HE. And if you leave the second number blank, then it's going to start at the first place and just go all the way to the end of the string, wherever that is. All right, so that's a nice shorthand to have. So that here we got character 2 through the end, and that's the LLO. And lastly, we can slice with negative indexes. So some examples here, like this one, I go from 1 to -1. And remember, -1 would be the last character of the string, but it's up to but not including. So what this, 1 to -1, right, what it did is it chopped off the first and last, right? It chopped off the first and last characters. If I start from -2, well, here's -1, -2, and it goes from -2 on to the end because I left it blank and I got the last 2 characters. Or, here's a colon with a -3, so it's going to start at the front and go to the character at up to, but not including the character at the -3 position. So here's -1, -2, -3, and so we're going to get the first 2 characters out of that because it's up to, but not including. All right, so that's how strings work, and I think it's really simple to understand the notation. Just get used to the 0 indexing, and especially if you've ever coded in another language, I think having fun with the the shorthand and being able to use negative indexes will make a lot of string problems really easy to solve. All right, so that's it. And if you have any questions, let me know.